Alright guys, this is Walt from Midwest Gaming. We just finished our Edison format tournament over at VCG Games here, and we have the winner here, Justin Kispert. What did you play?
I played Diva Heroes tonight. First place.
Very good, very good. Well, why don't you show us the deck here?
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and start off with the monsters here. We've got 3 copies of Deep Sea Diva. It's the namesake of the deck. What Deep Sea Diva is just a level 2 tuner that searches out a level 3 or lower sea serpent from your deck. So the common targets are either Deep Sea Diva or, and this is a one of in the deck, Spined Gilman. Spined Gilman isn't particularly important effect-wise. Really what it offers is free access to level 5 synchros in the deck. If you are out of a Spined Gilman, however, you can go into a second copy of Deep Sea Diva and open up synchro plays for the deck. Going alongside that, this deck does play 3 copies of Caius the Shadow Monarch. Pretty generic, good removal card back in the day. It's got the burn effect as well, which can potentially come up in the longer matches. So I play 3 of that. We're playing 2 copies of Destiny Hero Malicious. Obviously would be a 3 of, however it was semi-limited at the time.
That's right.
As you'll see as I'm going through here, there's a hero package that's kind of intermingled into the deck. The reason that you're playing this is because you're kind of going for a bit of a water hero synergy so that you can bring out probably the headliner of the deck, which is Elemental Hero Absolute Zero. That's kind of the boss monster. We'll kind of cover it when we go through the extra deck. But just know that this is one of the key components that you can use to go into that fusion monster. In addition to that, we're playing a few other heroes. So we're playing 2 Evil Hero Infernal Prodigy. We're playing the obvious, the man himself, Elemental Hero Stratos. And then 1 copy of Destiny Hero Diamond Dude. Stratos speaks for himself. Stratos, when summoned, will tutor up any one of these Destiny or Evil Heroes from your deck. Very good card all around, obvious inclusion. The Infernal Prodigy is actually pretty unique to this deck. Prior to this, I don't think too many decks were even considering running a card like this. What Infernal Prodigy does is if you control no monsters, you can special summon him from your hand. He has a secondary effect where you can tribute him, and if you do so and you summon a Destiny Hero, Elemental Hero, Evil Hero monster with it, you draw a card during the end phase. Doesn't come up too often, but it is noteworthy that you can tribute it to summon a Malicious and get a draw in the end phase.
That's your only...
really the only play you can make with that. But otherwise, he is good to just special summon a monster to tribute for Caius, or if you are kind of in a pinch and you need to activate Miracle Fusion rather immediately. So all around, a pretty good card. He combos with Allure as well, just kind of a free pitch off of the card. Diamond Dude's a bit of an odd one in this situation. He's kind of a tech choice. I play a decent number of normal spells. He's by no means a staple in the deck, however. In fact, you know, you could very well cut him for a Bubble Man, which acts as both an elemental hero and a water, which gives a lot of synergy. Or some people choose to run Neos Alias just as a relatively big beater for the deck. But nonetheless, this is the hero package for the deck.
How many free spells did you get off of Diamond Dude?
I got absolutely 0 tonight, so don't take my advice on him. Beyond that, there's a few other water monsters in the deck that kind of serve to flesh out your access to Miracle Fusion and Absolute Zero. So I've got 2 copies of Snow Man-Eater. Snow Man-Eater is kind of a pseudo Man-Eater bug. When he is flipped face up, he will pop a face-up monster on the field. So with his 1900 defense, he actually walls off quite a bit of the meta that was played back then. He does lose out to synchros quite a bit, but when he's flipped up, you can usually trade for the synchro, which makes him a pretty versatile card. He's also pretty good in the mirror match because if they hit it with Absolute Zero, it's a relatively easy, commitment-free way to clear their board. So I think he's a very good card, not to mention a water. Waters were kind of scarce back in 2010, so he definitely stands out amongst all of them. The only other water that I'm running is Treeborn. Treeborn is, I would say he's a staple in the deck. He's not as amazing as he probably was back in, 2007, 2008 with Monarch decks where, they would basically use him as the engine every single turn. There is some recursion that happens with him. He does pair well with Caius, obviously. Mostly what the Treeborn's there for is a secondary good target to pitch off of Future Fusion. So that's why the Treeborn is in there, and of course just the recursion is always nice. Then we got the random one-ofs at the end. So I've opted to play a copy of Dark Grepher. Grepher is definitely not a staple in the deck. He's kind of a tech option. I kind of like him because I don't have an overwhelming number of cards that I can use to pitch Malicious or a few other cards in my deck. And he also gives me pretty easy access to Plague Spreader Zombie. Plague Spreader Zombie is, I would say, a very good pair with Malicious. It's, back in the day, people did it all the time during Teledad, but still has the same effect even in 2010. Essentially, it's a 2-card combo, free level 8 synchro, which is very nice. And Grepher gives you pretty easy access to do that. So Plague Spreader, Tuner, very nice, easy inclusion into the deck. We got the one of Gores, pretty nice just to wall off attacks. The formats are pretty slow, so there are going to be situations where you're sitting on an open board. Pretty easy inclusion in Gores. Sangan, again, just kind of a nice staple. Searches out a lot of the big hitters in the deck, notably Diva. So Sangan can basically get you a free level 5 synchro if you play everything correctly. Otherwise, he gets Snowman Eater, which is also a very good out if you've kind of got a tricky board to deal with. One of Card Trooper. Card Trooper is just an all-around good card. This deck does have a lot of graveyard effects. You got the Malicious, you got the Plague Spreader, Treeborn, and then on top of that, sometimes you just need to fill up your grave with water monsters or hero monsters.
Your Miracle Fusion fodder?
Yep, absolutely. So Treeborn, I would consider that to be a very good card in the deck, but definitely attack if you're not feeling it. So that's the monsters.
Awesome.
Go ahead and move on to the spells here. Alright, so in order to get out our big bad boss monster, we're playing these 3 of Miracle Fusions here. And they do also slightly pair with this Future Fusion. These 4 cards together are basically your gateway into getting into Absolute Zero. So Future Fusion is kind of a nice, I would say, starter card for the deck. Future Fusion, as I'm sure everyone knows, will let you reveal a monster from your extra deck, and then you will send the materials from your deck to your graveyard, so specifically a fusion monster. So with this, the common play will be to reveal Absolute Zero. You'll send Destiny Hero Malicious and a water monster like a Treeborn. Those are usually 2 really good ones to go in. And then in 2 turns, you will get your Absolute Zero for pretty much 1 card, which is amazing. Speaking of 1-card fusions, I mean, Miracle Fusion kind of does it all. Miracle Fusion is essentially a 1-card Absolute Zero if you've got the materials on field or grave. Typically what you'll do is you'll just banish the used up heroes in your grave and then any extra water monsters you have, such as used up Divas, Spined Gilman. Treeborn, if you're in a pinch, can absolutely work as well. Snowman Eater. And then you'll drop Absolute Zero with that. So these will give you access to the big bad boss monster. In addition to that, since these are a little bit difficult to just hard draw, you do have 4 of them, but you're not always going to open them. I like the Sarkos for consistency. So Sarko will let you banish a card from your deck, and then you'll get it during the second standby phase. Typically what I'll do with Sarko is I'll grab one of these. In fact, I think as of tonight, I don't think I've ever gone for anything that wasn't these. Basically adds a little more consistency and gives you easier access to your big boss monster, which I like. Some people do prefer Upstart Goblin. I'm personally not a huge fan. Life points can get a little tight in this format, and I'm always a fan of ways to cut that out.
Sure.
So I personally don't do the Upstarts. I know people do. Beyond that, you've got Brain Control, Mind Control. Very good in the Synchro formats. You can steal a tuner. You can steal their Synchro monster. They're very good if you need to make pushes for game. Mind Control is kind of funny in the mirror match because you can actually take their heroes or their water monsters and then use them for Miracle Fusion, which did come up a few times tonight. So these two are just generically good in Edison format. Rhoda, I mean, you're playing Stratos, you're playing a few other good warriors, Greffer, so Rhoda is a pretty easy inclusion. We are playing Allure. Allure's pretty good by pitching a Infernal Prodigy. There's a few other darks that work with it as well, but typically Infernal Prodigy, I would say, is kind of the weak link in terms of a power level in the deck, so pairs really well with that, especially off of the Stratos. Some people play this with Destiny Draw. I personally don't, just because there doesn't seem to be enough targets, and I don't know. You know, it is cute pitching Malicious with the D-Draw, but again, it's kind of situational and just not enough targets to warrant it. Plus, you can only play one D-Draw in this format, so.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
We've got Heavy Storm. Again, no real explanation needed. MST as well. You know, you need some spell trap removal, and that kind of covers your bases. That's all I have for the spell lineup. Trap lineup, it's pretty shallow, but it kind of gets the job done. Wing Blast is pretty nice. Like I was mentioning, pitching things from your hand is actually pretty important for the deck. You know, you want to get the Malicious, the Plague Spreader, and Grave. Sometimes you just want to pitch excess waters or heroes as well. You might have a Miracle Fusion ready to go, but you don't have everything on field, and you don't want to commit a normal summon to it. It's also a very good interruption on the opponent's turn. You know, things like in the mirror match, if they summon their Malicious and they got a tuner on the field, you can interrupt the play by spinning the Malicious or the tuner, if you want, back to the top of the deck.
And now they get to draw Malicious, and it's
right,
awful.
you just give them a complete dead draw, shut down their plays. So I like the card. Some people will even go as far as running 3, which I find a bit excessive, but I can definitely see their reasoning. Two-dimensional Prism. I'll be honest, this is probably the one thing of the night that I would probably swap for Bottomless, just kind of playing it through. I went into it thinking Stardust would be kind of the big threat of the deck, especially if I couldn't crash with my Absolute Zero, if they had some other solution to it. Turns out, interrupting things on summon seemed to be the way to go. So I would personally swap those for Bottomless. You know, it kind of cleans up things a little bit neater than Dimensional Prison. This is a little bit more risky. It gets hit by a lot of the Monarchs a little bit easier. I think it has a little bit less synergy in this format, but definitely side deck worthy. The rest of them are one-ofs, so we've got, you know, TT, Mirror Force, Solemn. They're kind of like almost staple one-ofs in this format. Mirror Force is potentially something you could take out, but personally I like them. They just kind of deal with the board. This kind of helps push through your plays. Just everything Solemn typically does. The last card I have in here was actually just kind of a funny tech. People that played back in the day might have known, but this was something that was kind of theorized to be potentially good in Absolute Zero. It's very, very good if you've got Absolute Zero and you're facing down your opponent building up a board. Otherwise, you know, there's better cards. I'm not going to lie, you know, it's not some secret hidden tech that's going to make this deck above and beyond what it already is. But nonetheless, Matter Transporter was a fun card. I got it off one time today, so I was pretty happy. But basically, yeah, it'll banish the Zero. Zero gets its effect whenever it gets removed from the field. So you'll use it, you'll banish it, you'll pop their field, and then it just comes right back in the end phase. And it's not even a summon when it comes back. It just returns to the field, so they can't interact with it at all. So nonetheless, that is the main deck. We'll go ahead and jump into the extra deck really quick, I think. Actually pretty generic on the extra deck side. The tuners that we play are Diva and Plague Spreader. I don't believe I'm playing any other ones. Apologies if I've missed anything, but so those are both level 2. So our options get a little bit more limited as to what we can go into. Armory Arm is specifically for Infernal Prodigy and either Plague Spreader or Diva if you're stuck in that situation. You won't find yourself going into it all that much, but you definitely have room in this deck, so it's nice to have. Cataster, in fact, let's go ahead and put out all of the level 5. So Cataster, Sea Dragon, and Magical Android. I play 3 level 5s. This is probably the most common level that you'll go into, especially seeing as Diva is your easiest 1-card synchro summon. So you want to have diversity there. Cataster, obviously very good for chipping away at opponents' monsters. Even if it can't quite clear a monster, attack point wise, it usually trades with stuff like a 0. So I think it definitely deserves a spot. I mean, it is a generically good 5. This one's a bit unique. Can't say that I've gone into him all that much, but again, I have the space. Basically, as he's on the field, if a level 3 or lower monster is sent to the graveyard, he becomes 3,000 attack until the end of the turn. So if you are, let's say, playing your Diva combo out and you drop him, and then you go into your Malicious and Plague Spreader play, those guys will go to the graveyard. He'll go up to 3,000. You'll get out a level 8 Synchro, and then this guy can pretty much attack over anything. So you can go into a lower attack level 8 Synchro like Stardust Dragon. It is a little bit more situational, I will admit, but again, with the space, I would say absolutely include. Android, not particularly great card, but it's got the highest stat line for level 5. As for level 6s, you go into these a little bit less frequently, but obviously you want to have them. You know, you can use Grepher, Stratos, a few other plays in the deck will allow you to open up these level 6s. So those are by far and away the best level 6s, so play both of them. Black Rose Dragon, only level 7 I play, Field Clearer. Don't go into it very often, but good to have. Level 8s, so I'm playing Stardust, Colossal, Dark End Dragon. Some people do opt to play Thought Ruler as well, which you absolutely could. Stardust, obviously very good to protect your plays and is a pseudo counter to the Mirror Match. Definitely not perfect, but I would say that Stardust Dragon is... I'll have a good night. Stardust Dragon, I would say, is definitely something that kind of supports your own board, and especially when you get into a Miracle Fusion situation and you've got your own Absolute Zero, it can make it tricky for them to remove your Absolute Zero in a situation that's less desirable for you. You can protect it with the Stardust. Dark End, you can go into it with the Plague Spreader and the Malicious play. Dark End is a pretty easy monster removal card for your opponent. When it's summoned, it sends a monster from your opponent's field to the graveyard, and then his attack and defense decreased by 500, kind of akin to the Light and Darkness Dragon. It's good to clear Stardust for sure. There's a few other applications as well. Just if you're facing down a higher attack point monster, there's not really another level 8 Synchro that cleanly takes care of it as well as Dark End does. So I've opted to include that. Only other Synchro is a Mistworm, level 9. Again, you won't go into it very much. I believe he was the only level 9 available at the time. Trish was still a year out, so I included him. Didn't go into him all that much, but... And then we get into the boss monsters of the deck. So he's not as much of a boss monster, but he gives you some alternative access, I would say, because you are technically playing 4 fusion cards. You're playing Future Fusion and 3 Miracle Fusion. So there is theoretically a situation where you'll play your Future Fusion, you'll get your Absolute Zero, and then you'll play 2 Miracles, go through your other 2, and then you're kind of stuck if you're only playing 3 Absolute Zero. But he gives you access to an additional fusion summon. He's not as good, you know, his effect is a little bit weaker, but nonetheless, he kind of makes all of your cards live. And again, you have room for him, might as well. Really, the only ways that you can go into him are with Card Trooper from the main deck, or I believe Goyo Guardian is an Earth as well, so that'll give you access to him. But, yeah, you know, he's a little bit more tricky to get out, but he's kind of just a substitute fusion, if you will. And then we've got 3 Absolute Zeros. So, Absolute Zero, Absolute Boss. I think that this card is very fun to play with. His effect is when he's removed from the field, he destroys all of your opponent's monsters. Basically just a Regeki whenever he's taken off. Doesn't matter how he's removed either. You know, you could bounce him, you banish him, destroy him by card effect, battle. He's going to get his effect either way. So yeah, he's definitely the namesake and definitely the biggest threat that this deck can put out. He's got a secondary effect, which is kind of cute as well. He gets 500 attack for every other water monster on the field. So if you've got at least one other water, he contends with pretty much any monster of the format, which is nice. So, but yeah, your goal is definitely to get him out. Everything else is kind of ancillary support for the deck. But he definitely rules supreme, I would say.
Sure.
So that's the extra deck.
Did you have to go into Gaia at all?
Tonight, I actually ran into a situation where it would have been beneficial to go into Gaia, but I didn't have an Earth, because I actually went through my 3 absolute zeros and had a miracle in hand, and it was just dead. But luckily, we pulled it off with a few other cards. So, the side deck, I'll be honest, it's been a while since I played this format, so I was kind of grasping at straws with a little bit of it. But DD Crow, I mean, that's just pretty generically good through a lot of formats. Deals really well against Monarchs, and you can side it in the mirror. I don't think it's the absolute best thing in the mirror, because Miracle Fusion doesn't target when you're using it. So if they have a secondary copy, I mean, you're not gonna make it fizzle. So it does work pretty well against stuff like Dandy Warrior, though, which is a pretty big deck. Frog Monarch is pretty relevant. There's a few other decks it has a good matchup against. I was trying to get a little too cute with this one. Puppet Plant. Puppet Plant is basically a one-turn brain control on an opponent's spellcaster or warrior type monster. I figured I would try it out to be cute in the mirror match. You know, take their absolute zero and maybe I can just get enough on board for game. Nobody's expecting it, so I figured why not. I did side it in a few games. Honestly, I never drew it, so I really can't speak to how good it was, but nonetheless, I figured I'd throw them in there. Couple of Fossil Dyna. I think that this one's probably the best against Dandy Warrior, just because I think, generally speaking, you can probably put up a stronger board than they can, and if you can lock them out of their synchro plays, really secure it, you're basically going to beat over them for game, turn over turn. I mean, there's not much that they can do if they can't take this guy out. Super Nimble Mega Hamster will fizzle against him, and it doesn't have enough attack to get over it, which is nice. Debris Dragon can't get over it. Card Trooper is one of their only outs, or tributing for a Caius, but if you keep him off of a board, it starts to get a little tricky. He's definitely not perfect by any means. I don't mean to, talk about him like he's the best thing ever. In fact, thinking about it, I might have just gone for Royal Oppression, but nonetheless, I had him there for the Dandy Warrior matchup. Couple of Ryo. This one kind of the same thing. I figured synchro heavy decks are very popular, and Searching's also very popular. He's just a generically good side deck card, so I had the room. I figured I'd throw him in. Had a couple of Noblemans also for the Dandy Warrior matchup. Just very good to get rid of those Super Nimble Megas, Raikos, take out opposing Snowman Eater before they can pop your board. Again, just pretty generically good for the time.
Yeah, I was surprised at how relevant Nobleman can be.
Nobleman stood the test of time. Yeah. Kudos for it. Onto the traps. So I don't main deck Trap Dust Shoot. I'll be honest, these two probably should be swapped, or this should be taken out altogether. I am playing 41 cards after all, but Trap Dust Shoot, I just like the consistency of knowing, if I'm going first, I can have it in. So I side it. Definitely main deck worthy though. A couple of Dust Tornadoes in case, and believe it or not, we did have a burn player tonight, but in case you go up against a burn matchup, I'm really only playing 2 direct spell and trap removals in the main deck, so it's nice having a little bit of extra consistency in the side. And then, as I said before, Bottomless, I think I would have put that in the main and swapped out the Dimensional Prisms. But nonetheless, I did side them. Often I did end up siding them in place of the Dimensional Prisons, and they did a lot better.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, they're just, again, to immediately react to your opponent's plays and big synchros. I think that these things are absolutely stellar. So would definitely end up playing these.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's the deck profile for Diva Hero.
So, back in 2010, was this the deck that you played back in the day?
Back in 2010, I actually played a Synchro Cat deck, so it would use like Flamvels, Gravekeepers, it would use Rescue Cat with Airbellums. This was a deck I really wanted to play back in the day, and I saw a lot of other people having fun with it, but at the time I didn't try it, so I'm very happy I gave it a shot tonight. It's a lot of fun to play with.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the deck profile. Congratulations
Absolutely.
on the first
Thank you.
place there. This is Walt from Midwest Gaming signing out.